Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of Building Magic Polyglot Applications. Now that we've set the scene and you've got Python and Visual Studio Code installed and up and running, and you've seen a few quick demos, let's build a command line program with a few messaging utility functions that shows one way of how we can start to integrate all of this into Magic. The goal today is to build an application that can do a couple of things. We will be able to send an SMS message on demand using Twilio, and also have the ability to send HTML content emails using either SendGrid or Amazon Web Services' simple email service. To create the command line interface in Python, we'll use a great package called Typer, which incidentally is also written by the guy who created the fantastic Fast API framework that will feature soon in an upcoming episode. And we'll use AutoPy2Exe, which wraps the PyInstaller feature, allowing us to build a single standalone exe file that can be deployed and used without installing Python. Let's get started. Let's open a command prompt and let's change directory to the Magic Polyglot root folder we're using. And let's create a new directory for this episode called EP4, and let's change into it. Now, for this episode, we'll create a new Python environment, Python-m v-env. Okay, let's launch Visual Studio Code from this directory. Now, command backtick opens a terminal window, and if you have PowerShell as a default profile for terminal, you may want to do this. Let's click the down arrow next to the plus sign and choose Select Default Profile. Now let's choose Command Prompt. Now after we restart, terminal will open the more familiar command prompt, allowing us to avoid the complexities of PowerShell and its privileges requirements. We restart and okay, we're in a command prompt. Good. Now we can activate the Python environment. Be sure to see the env in brackets at the prompt, right? Now I created a GitHub repository for our work on Magic Polyglot, and you'll find this at github.com/createcode/magic-polyglot. This will grow over time. In the EP4 folder, you can find note.txt with an outline of what we're doing today. For example, you can see the homepage for Typer, where you can find documentation and samples. We'll also make use of other libraries, including Python-env, Twilio will allow us to send SMS. You'll need to sign up for a free account and create API keys to use the service. Same goes for Amazon's simple email service and for SendGrid. Again, on SendGrid, you need to create a free account and you can create the API keys that we'll need. Finally, AutoPy2Exe will allow us to compile Python into a standalone executable, and we'll see that towards the end of the episode today. Okay, let's install the Typer package. we're using pip install square brackets all because that also gives us a few other dependencies. Okay, pip is suggesting we upgrade our version of pip. Let's do that. So let's add a new Python file called messageutils.py, and we'll begin by importing the typer package. Let's start with something simple just for illustration. We'll create an app object of type typer, and we'll add a decorator for a function. Let's call it hello, and we'll expose this at the command line. We'll create a function with a parameter name typed as a string because typer will enforce that validation for us. This function is really simple. It's just a print statement using f-string. Let's create another function exposed as by. And finally, we'll create a main block to set things up at runtime. Okay, let's run the script. All right, typer tells us we need to split a command. Fair enough. Okay, we run hello and typer tells us we need an argument called name. Finally, we get it right and boom, the program works. We got a lot of command line boilerplate for free there. Now, typer has some commentary about install completion. We're not going to use that here. So let's disable that feature and make the help text clearer. Let's add doc strings to each function to further enhance the help text at the command line. Okay, great. Next, we'll create a .env file to store the token values we need to use the Twilio service. Now, we don't want these embedded in the code, and we want to make sure the .env is in our getignore file should we be using Git as version control. But this simple text file lets us define the key values we need. Now I want to expose my API values here, but instead I'll fill them in off screen. You'll get the API keys you need from your account on Twilio, and you can create and revoke these as needed. Okay, we're going to pip install python-env to allow Python to translate the .env into environment variables, and we can then recognize and use these in the program. So we'll import the load_.env function we need from the .env package, and we'll build those in the main block. We also need to import the standard library OS. Okay, let's create the send SMS functionality in its own module. We'll create a Python file called send_sms.py, and we'll import OS. Next, we will pip install the Twilio library so we can import the Twilio REST client feature. Okay, good. Let's create a function called send_SMS with two parameters for the recipient and the message. And let's instantiate a Twilio client object using the account SID and the auth token API values that we retrieve as environment variables. Again, you'll get your own account SID and auth token under your account on Twilio. Next, we create a message with the required attributes. And finally, we'll print the message SID just for some debugging. We'll save that and return to messageutils.py. Now we'll import the send_SMS function we just created. and we can remove the two dummy functions we created earlier. Let's define a new SMS command and a function to actually send the message. We're expecting two parameters, the recipient number and the actual text message body itself. We've typed both of those as string. We'll add our docstring and we'll call the send SMS function. Okay, looks good. Let's run that at the command line. Oh, we got an error. My bad. There's only one function in the program, so the command is obsolete and we messed up the syntax. It's worthwhile to see that, no harm. Let's add another quick function to get things back in order. How about we have a simple version command and simply print a version message? Okay, let's run it again. And that looks good. And here's a screen grab of the actual text message that I received. Great. Now, just to speed things along, I've omitted typing out the remainder of the episode, and you can instead retrieve and see these files on GitHub. Again, I won't show you my private.env, but the sample.env contains all of the key value pairs I need for the additional functionality of sending emails through Amazon Simple Email Service and SendGrid. Again, you should create your own free accounts and get your own API values if you want to see this run for you. We added some new Python files and functions. Send email SES lets us send emails through AWS. And we need to pip install Amazon's AWS utility library, which is called Boto3. And we have send email _SG, which sends email via SendGrid. Again, we need to pip install SendGrid. Now, these functions are imported into messageutils.py. And we've defined a sendGrid command, which accepts a single recipient email parameter. The subject and text are hard-coded here, it's just for illustration. And we also defined an SES command. Let's send an email using sendGrid. Just a single parameter for the recipient. Okay, looks good. And let's send another using SES. Again, we got good debug information there. And here's a screen grab of that message received. Now, let's talk about a best practice for managing all the libraries and dependencies we've installed. We can have a file named requirements.txt that lists all the packages we need. We can have pip install all of those and their dependencies in one go with the command pip install -r requirements.txt. This will install everything we need. Now, we can also generate that requirements text file from the current environment by using pip freeze and redirecting the resulting list to requirements.txt. You can see that gave us a complete list of all dependencies we've installed, along with version numbers, meaning we have a reliable way to share and collaborate and move projects around. Now, the last package we're going to look at today is called autopy to exe. Let's pip install autopy to exe. Now, unlike the other libraries you've seen, this is actually a utility program we run to wrap PyInstaller to build the command line exe programs I mentioned. Let's see it run. We're presented with a GUI where we choose the main entry point script of the project, in our case, messageutils. We select the one file option and hit convert to begin. This allows us to compile Python scripts into self-contained executables that include the Python engine, meaning we can distribute this exe and it can be used on a machine where Python might not even be installed. It also gives us an entry-level way of magic calling this exe at the OS command operation. At the end, it's important to check for successful completion and our exe will be created in the output folder. Having closed that window, let's open a command prompt and navigate to our project folder. Now let's change into the output folder itself. And we can see our executable was created. Now we can run it directly at the command line with the same arguments and see it work. Boom. That's all for today. Stay tuned for more episodes. The fun is only just beginning.